Hey guys, what is up? It's Dusty here, and welcome back to another crypto video. Today, I want to give you guys a good overview of the Ripple v SEC lawsuit, basically what you should be expecting and when. Now, yesterday, I asked you guys if we could hit 1,000 likes on the video. We hit it within like 2 hours or so, which has been amazing. You guys know that by pressing that like button, you're helping the channel out a ton because it helps in the YouTube algorithm. So let's try to get 1,500 likes on this video today. Would be very freaking cool, and let's get it started. The SEC v Ripple. Below is an updated schedule of upcoming events. Fabulous graphics, again provided by Status. You should check out his XP community posters. Well, I'm not on them, if you're wondering, but we can, of course, cover this little part. And before we actually do that, guys, put down below, do you think the Ripple v SEC lawsuit will be over in 2021? Yes or no? All right, so our first date of interest is actually today. And so I will most likely be covering it the moment we get a response. Let me quickly overview it. The Ripple defendants' response to the SEC's request for a telephonic conference in order to seek a protective order, relieving the SEC of any obligation to respond to Ripple defendants' request for admission. So a little while back here, Ripple sent the SEC, and it's actually been done through a longer period of time, but basically, the SEC alerted the courts a couple of days ago that Ripple has been sending them so many requests for answers that they basically got sick of it. And they want to discuss this with Ripple and the court to basically relieve them of the duty to reply to all Ripple's questions, which in this case are the admissions, because they feel as if for a couple of reasons they do not need to. And we've covered that in one of the previous videos. And again, today Ripple will respond explaining why the SEC does need to respond to all the, I think it's like 30,000 admissions, which is definitely interesting though. It's going to be a lot of answering that the SEC has to do if it's granted, I guess, if it's granted for Ripple's side. But a telephonic conference could mean that we get another hearing, and I'm going to do another live stream where Ripple and the SEC and the judge are in a call, and they're going to put up their arguments back and forward, and the judge is going to make some conclusions. As it currently stands, though, there's no date for it yet because they brought up that they might want such a telephonic conference, and Ripple now will most likely say, hey, we do not want that because we don't think it's necessary. We think this period could solve or resolve the issue. Then tomorrow, so it's a pretty big week as of this point. The reason I'm saying that is because we've already got quite a couple of, big hits this week. Like, for example, John Deaton's motion to intervene was concluded. And I guess two other parts, which are pretty crucial in terms of effectiveness or relevance. It's a pretty big week. So tomorrow we have Ripple's response to the SEC's second motion for a telephonic conference and order compelling Ripple to search for and produce video and audio tape recordings of internal Ripple meetings where Brad Garlinghouse, Chris Larson, and other key employees spoke on topics relevant to disputes in the lawsuit. So again, guys, we have basically seen that the SEC wants videotapes from Ripple, audio recordings, everything, and we personally believe that that's because they are trying to pursue a different question. At first, the SEC sued Ripple with the intention of claiming XRP has been a security all along, it's still a security now, boom, bam, bam, right? But we kind of expect the SEC to not be able to prove that in court, so they want to kind of take a different angle by saying Ripple marketed XRP at some points. And we believe that some of these audio recordings and video recordings that they're seeking are potentially going to prove that. Now, it's not really certain that the judge is going to allow for it because I believe the judge knows as well that the discovery has basically ended. The SEC is now saying, yeah, but Ripple didn't notify us properly that they had those documents, which, yeah, that might work. It just depends. But I don't think they can prove reasonably why they would need these video or audio recordings. So I don't think it's going to be granted, but we'll see Ripple's response to it tomorrow, explaining, of course, why they do not have to hand it over. That's usually how these things go. Then November 12th, which is pretty far away still, is the deadline of expert discovery. A lot of people in the comment section actually were kind of unclear about that. Now, to my understanding, and we've discussed this with a lawyer before, right? It basically means that in this phase right now, we have expert discovery, which is where both parties and the judge, basically all these parties, talk every topic over with experts in the field to kind of get the real facts on everything. This is not a concluding sort of phase where it's like they're not drawing any major conclusions. They're just gathering information from experts rather than information from each other in a basic sense. That was the previous phase where they're basically grabbing information from each other. Right now, they're grabbing information from experts. For example, they can go up to a law firm or a freaking Congress, I don't know, and ask them, hey, has there been any rule made on this specific matter? When was this rule put into place? And for example, they could go to a legal expert and say, hey, what we were thinking, is that important at X specific date? You guys get the idea, right? This is just experts in the field. It's a little bit less specific than what I'm trying to point the direction into, because of course, if they're asking some more of the normal legal questions, they probably have their legal counsel for that. They've most likely done the due diligence in that already. I'm more so talking about, for example, blockchain experts and whatnot. And then we are waiting for the following decisions. First of all, the Ripple defendants' pending motion to compel the SEC to produce certain documents it designated as privileged. Briefing was completed on September 28th. Second, Ripple's request that let's actually go over these, right? So the motion to compel is basically Ripple wants the SEC to hand over documents. The SEC claimed that it was all privileged. Ripple says, no, it isn't. Give it over. And, well, the SEC put up a letter to the judge and to Ripple explaining what stuff they're hiding and why. And Ripple replied a little bit later explaining why they have to hand it over. And now the judge has to make a conclusion on that. We had an audio hearing on that the 31st of August, then a letter from the SEC 14th of September, and then Ripple's response September 28th. So most likely pretty soon here the judge is going to make her conclusion. The thing is though, she has to look through so many tens of documents to kind of decide whether or not the SEC's info is actually privileged or not. And the SEC basically did a blanket view, which is basically they hide everything, claiming that everything is privileged. The judge is now going over a couple of those files over which they threw the blanket to basically decide whether or not they asserted the privilege nicely and properly or not. Okay, 2, Ripple's request that 3 additional documents be reviewed in camera based on a privilege log provided by the SEC after the August 31st telephonic conference, including an email chain concerning discussions with a third party whom defendants understand received guidance from the SEC to analyze its digital assets under the framework set forth in Director William Himmon's 2018 speech. This small part is basically an addition to the top part, which is Ripple later on found out that the SEC didn't provide enough documents basically in the first list of documents. And so when Ripple found that out, they wanted to add a couple of things that the judge needs to overview. One of them being some very, very critical piece of information. This guidance received upon a party after the William Himmons speech. 3, the motion by Ripple and Chris Larsen to compel the SEC to answer interrogatories identifying the SEC's theory of how the Howey test applies to virtually all of the defendants' transactions in XRP over the last 8 years. Again, they want the SEC to answer stuff. And compelling to answer, again, means the Ripple wants the SEC to answer stuff and they have to ask the judge for it. 4, the SEC's motion to strike Ripple's defense. So, as far as I know now from Jeremy Hogan, the lawyer, he told us that an affirmative defense is one that will win you. So, for example, they have 7 affirmative defenses. If any one of them holds, you've basically, from a certain perspective, won the case, or at least any one of them is so critical that you cannot basically fully lose. I guess you can kind of come out neutral, but you cannot really lose anymore if one of the defenses really holds, right? At least that's as far as I now know it. Again, guys, I'm not a legal advisor. But as it currently stands, this is one of the most important and critical decisions that need to be made. And we have expected that the conclusion on this one will actually take a long time because a lot of points come into that. For example, you cannot strike the fair notice defense down without knowing everything, kind of. Then again, you can also not grant the defense, but that's not the issue at hand here. The SEC is trying to say the fair notice defense makes no sense. Ripple's trying to say, well, it does. So the SEC is trying to take the defense out. The problem with that is, well, it can only be taken out if it can really be shown that even if it were true that they didn't get fair notice, I believe, that it still doesn't basically matter. If they can prove that, then I believe, no, that's with the motion to dismiss. Potentially with a motion to strike as well. But at least it's basically so if the motion to strike pulled through, it would be detrimental to Ripple. And so they're basically taking a very, very good care of it. And a motion to strike is to get the defense out of the way. And fair notice basically means that the SEC warned, or at least that Ripple should have known, kind of. And then 5, the individual defendant's motion to dismiss the First Amendment complaint. Amended complaint. Yeah, so the individual defendants are Brad Garlinghouse and Chris Larson. They have also been sued separately of Ripple, and they basically want to dismiss the lawsuit against those two. And that's what that part is about. Whew. All right. So, yeah, that's a little bit of an overview, guys, of what is about to happen in the Ripple v. SEC lawsuit. Now, before we move on with a couple of pieces of crypto news, I want to quickly tell you guys, make sure you follow me over on Instagram. And, guys, the first link in the description is my XRP competition. Now, I should actually check on my phone real quick to see if it's already live. I'm not sure just quite yet. But there's basically going to be a 50,000 XRP competition over on Bybit. And I didn't put it open for some reason because I think I just forgot. But you guys should check it out. A link is going to be down below. And it's definitely going to be worth it for you guys to check it out. I'm just quickly checking it on my phone. Let's see here. Yeah, you guys, you can already register. So there's going to be a link down below, the first link in the description, and most likely the first link in the comment section. It is my 50,000 XRP Bybit competition. Check it out. If you're already trading on Bybit, you should definitely enter. Otherwise, too, because it's going to be a ton of money that we are giving away, all right? So check it out. A link is down below. Then we should thank Jody Godoy for her fair reporting on the SEC v. Ripple case, how XRP holders are trying to get their collective voices heard. Accurate and fair media reporting is all we ask for. So what I'm trying to say with this one, I will go over it in more detail a little bit later today, is more and more attention is being brought to the Ripple v. SEC suit. And I think a lot of it started with Gasparino, who's basically propelled it in the Fox business and whatnot, and the fact that John Deaton is just doing some mass reporting everywhere. I mean, it kind of feels like he's leading an army into war with the amount of support he's also been getting, but also the amount of effort he's been putting in into making sure that everybody hears about this case. And I can definitely give him a thumbs up for that, guys. I really appreciate the efforts. And also people are saying it's your time to shine. Yeah, guys, it is his time to shine. I think things are about to get really freaking interesting. And then digital asset investors shared this. Congress, ever played Monopoly? Please retweet. And it's again another video of we all know who it is. And again, guys, I want to quickly bring to your attention that Joseph Lubin of Ethereum, I don't have anything against the man himself, right? And I don't actually think that any regulations brought up on Ethereum are, just kind of long-lasting necessarily. I think everything can change. And it could even be that Ethereum got some more clarity than the others. Do I really blame him for it? No, because obviously at the end of the day, it's the SEC who makes all the choices to give some parties privileged information or not. I mean, if Joe Lubin knew more than others, it's not his own fault that he knew more, right? Why would we blame him for it? It is still the fault of the SEC. Then again, the only thing that we want to kind of know is, did he know more? And did he get a privileged kind of overview or insights? And was it a fair game? And that's not only because we, kind of don't want him to succeed or anything. No, that makes no sense. No, that's not it. It's mostly why only them? And why when parties come up to the SEC for clarity, they're like, we can't give it to you. You're not going to give it. But then him himself, the founder of Ethereum, he can say, oh, the markets are clear. When clearly Coinbase, Ripple, and every other party out there, even members from the SEC like Hester Peirce, look at it and say, nah, it's not clear. It's only Gary Gensler and Joe Lubin. And I guess maybe Jay Clayton or something like that, or William Himon. How? Why? Well, there's something wrong, right, guys? There's something wrong. And that's what we're trying to figure out. So once more, no hatred towards the individual. It's the system. So yeah. All right, guys, thank you all for watching this video. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you press the like button and subscribe, and I will definitely see you guys again in another crypto video later today. A lot of cool stuff coming up, so make sure you put that notification bell on so you don't miss out on any future videos.